Welcome to the Path Forward podcast. I'm the host, Augie. The podcast is brought to you by the Second Opportunity Program. And my guest today is Courtney Buchholz, and she's coming to us from Denver, Colorado. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia right now. And we're going to talk about Courtney's journey and some of the things that she's currently doing to establish herself in a career. And I think this would be of great interest because it shows a definite pathway that's available. And so, Courtney, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to sit with me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So I guess I want to start just by let us get to know you a little bit. So where did you grow up at? Where were you born and raised and schooling, that type of thing?
I come from a small town in northern Minnesota. I was born in Duluth, Minnesota, but I was raised in Cloquet. Most of my schooling was done there, and some of the things that I like to do while I was up there was just being outdoors. It was nice. It was quiet. It was quaint, if you will. A lot different than Denver for sure.
Well, I can tell you there's a connection point for us right off the bat. So I spent 9.5 years in Duluth, Minnesota, except I wasn't there voluntarily. So I was in the federal prison in Duluth. And I say all the time, Duluth is the coldest place on earth. Um, there could be some brutal January and February days. In fact, it wasn't unusual to have to wear a jacket at night in a winter jacket at night in May and June. And I'm also familiar with Cloquet, which is just down the road toward Minneapolis. So when you were younger, when you went to school, were there things that you gravitated toward, your studies or sports or other types of hobbies?
I found interest in, all sorts of things. I liked art a lot. I did some improv stuff with Destination Imagination. I decided to do basketball one year, and that ended up falling through because I had fallen and broke my thumb. So therefore, I was out the rest of the season with the cast. But it was just mostly getting through school. I enjoyed it, but I found it difficult to pay attention. And now older, I have come to realize that it was ADHD. And I did drop out of school my senior year of high school. I had done a post-secondary enrollment option and got my certified nursing assistant and home health aide certificate through Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College. And then from there, I just started working. And so I didn't finish my graduating year of high school. I did recently, though, obtain my GED last month. And so don't ever give up on your education. It's so important. That's even if it took me 18 years, I finished it. I just wanted to work by the time I turned 18. I was just ready to make money. Mostly everybody I hung out with was older. And so it was just, they were working. So I figured I needed to work. So.
Well, congratulations on the GED. That's a big deal. I mean, I know it's a big deal, and I'm sure you had to put effort in, and probably there was a gap in the amount of time since you had gone to school and gone through the rigors of testing and those type of things. So there's some additional challenges that come along with it as we start to do education as we get a little bit older. So at some point in your life, you ended up on the wrong path. And could you talk just a little bit about that and what the outcome was?
Um, well, I've had a couple different run-ins, if you will. When I was younger, I had gotten into some trouble and, was in and out of the justice system up until I was about 21. So from 18 to 21. And then when I turned 21, I started making better decisions. Met my current husband. We had children. Been married 11 years this July. And so we decided to move the family from from Minnesota to Denver for better work opportunities and just a more diverse culture for the children for school. All my children started schooling down here and not in Minnesota. We just wanted a different path for them than we had. And so we moved here and um, when my kids were old enough to start school full time, I was a stay-at-home mom at that time. I kind of lost it. I was unsure of my career path. I was unsure of who I was. My identity had been so into being a mother and a wife that I didn't know who I was outside of that. So my husband was working 60, 70 hours a week and my children are in school full time and I just didn't know what to do. And so I trickled backwards into what I knew best, and that was my addiction. I've been a struggling addict for 20 years now, and this last relapse I had is what led me down the path to where I am today. And it introduced homelessness to my family, and a welfare check was done on us while we are sleeping in the car, and they had found some substances on me, and I was arrested for possession. And anyways, they drug it out. I ended up losing custody of my kids. I was homeless for a year with my husband on the streets here, and then, that's when I was finally forced into county for 60 days, and for some charges, and then for the possession charges, I was sentenced when I was released after the 60 days, and I was told that I was going to have a child abuse charge on my record. And the idea of being a stay-at-home mom, where I had devoted so much of my time and energy into one thing, and having a charge like that be brought to my attention was absolutely terrifying and demeaning as a mother. Um, when all I was doing was letting the car run to keep my kids warm. It wasn't like I was out driving around. We were tired. We pulled over in a parking lot to sleep, and circumstances led to where they are now. Since then, since I've been sentenced, and I had done my time, up to a certain point, this time, I decided that it was time to make a change. And so I started looking for work and trying to introduce myself back into the working field, if you will, and didn't realize how hard it was going to be with a child abuse charge on your record. Um, I didn't want to go back into, bartending or serving, because that was kind of what I had done prior, here and there. And just because of the lifestyle that goes with it and with my addiction, it just wasn't, I didn't feel safe for me. And so I looked and I looked and I looked, and I found the Center for Employment Opportunities. And so I reached out to my probation officer and I asked her for a referral. I had no idea what the program was, what it did. All I know is that it was daily pay, and it was not your ideal work, but it was road abatement, and it was something to put money in my pocket to show the court stability to try to get my kids back. And um, I stepped foot here for my intake process, and I kind of felt like it was a sham. I didn't know what to expect, where it was going to go. And I was just like, yeah, I'll be here. Once you call me for orientation, I'll be here. And so I showed up for orientation, and they talked about their advanced training pathways. And that happens to be the internship position, the emerging leadership program that they have. And I remember sitting in orientation and I looked at my instructor at the time, and I told him, I was like, I'm going to do that. And in order to do that, you have to be showing up for crew every day. You have to come to your office visits once a week, and you have to be very proactive in your program. And my first day on crew was absolutely the hottest day I'd ever experienced in Colorado, I swear. And it was like over 100 degrees. I was in jeans and black colored steel toe boots and outside in the sun, and I was just like, "I'm gonna die out here, I'm gonna die out here, there's no way I'm gonna make it to that internship position, there's no way." And, I called in the next day because I was so drained, I thought I was literally I could barely pull myself out of bed. It was horrible, but the 3rd day I came in and I was like, "Listen, I apologize. I was not expecting it to be that atrocious with the weather, if you will." But after that, I made it a point to come every day and be to all of my scheduled work days and all of my office meetings. And a site supervisor recognized that and referred me for the ELP position. And I applied against 4 other of my coworkers that were on crew with us. And I almost pulled my application because some of the candidates that I was running against were so qualified, and I didn't feel good enough to be ever referred for that position, imposter syndrome, if you will. And so I almost pulled my application. And my friend was like, no, like, listen, just do it. They said, if you get it over me, I will not, it won't affect our relationship. It won't affect our friendship. And I was like, you know what? Okay. So I did. I interviewed for it and I got the position.
I want to back up. So ELP is the leadership program, right? What is it? Executive leadership program?
So what it is, it's just an emerging leadership program. And so what it is it's a vocational staff training. And so what you are doing in that role is you are learning to kind of how the office in CEO operates. So like we have a job coach, we have a job developer, we have a pathways to employment instructor, and an outreach specialist. And so you kind of learn a little bit of each of those roles and like office etiquette, customer service, answering phones, sending professional emails, things like that. It was looked a little bit different for our office at the time because our contract with the Colorado Department of Transportation was up for renewal. It's up for renewal every 5 years. And so I started in the office or November 4th. And my internship ended February 4th. And we didn't have any orientations or new participants coming through because of that contract renewal. So we were kind of on hold. And so it was a lot of just intake processing, reach out to probation officers, parole officers, different nonprofit organizations in the area, and just like kind of telling them about the work we do and things like that. So it was a little bit different than some of our other office locations, which were having ELP members like host orientations, do some of the meetings and things like that. But like I said, we didn't have any new participants coming through, so it looked different for me.
The population that works in that organization, are they all formerly incarcerated?
Yep, all justice impacted. So to be eligible for the program as a participant to get the daily pay, you have to be on probation or parole or incarcerated within the last year, whether that means killed your DOC number, arrested and sentenced in municipal court, which is some fines or something, but still having issues finding work. But you had to have been recently justice impacted within that last year. And so for me, my instance was, of course, sentenced in March of last year. And so that's what I reached out to my probation officer for that referral. And you had to be referred in for your spot in the program.
Is the organization work specifically with females, or is it males and females? How does that work?
It's male and or female, and no backgrounds are disqualified. So any of your charges we work with all, there's no like biases or judgments on any backgrounds. We work with everybody and anybody who has been justice impacted. And a good portion of our staff who operate the nonprofit organization have a justice impacted background. Not all of us, but a good portion of us. So, and most of us have had that opportunity to start as a participant and kind of work their way up the ladder.
And the organization, you're in the Denver office or the Denver location, but this is actually an organization that has offices around the country, don't they?
Correct. Yeah. So we are the largest nonprofit reentry organization in the country. We are in 12 states and 30 cities within the United States.
This is valuable information, and the fact that it's embedded in your story is really terrific because it gives you bring an authenticity to it. This isn't some sort of a commercial. This is somebody that's actually living this, that's been incarcerated, that's getting back on their feet. And this is one of the tools that they're using in order to get back on their feet. So I'd like to hear more about, you talked about, you got into the internship program, but the contract hadn't yet been renewed. So I think we're kind of on the edge of our seats, wondering if it was in fact renewed and where things stand right now with the office that you're working in.
So, in the internship role, the idea is to give us the skills and tools that we need to really be efficient while looking for work outside of CEO, because all of your participation in this program and the emerging leadership program, they're all temporary. So the internship is 12 weeks. And so technically speaking, we are still supposed to be applying for positions, whether it's within CEO or outside, but they're giving us all these different skills and tools. And so by the end of my internship, there was still no finalization to that contract. But I was given a call, um, Tamara Springs, who was my internship facilitator and now my apprenticeship facilitator. She called me and reached out to me and was like, "Hey, you know, we wanted to launch our first ever emerging leadership program apprenticeship position. Is that something you would be considered in doing?" And I was like, say no more. Like, if it involves more learning, more hands-on, experience with what goes on in the office and the CEO's organization as a whole, I said, sign me up. Because up to that point, I thought I knew a lot about our organization, but I didn't. And so she's like, I'm unsure of what it'll kind of look like, but we're just trying to map it out and just trying to figure out if that's something you'd be willing to do. And so it came closer to the end of my internship, mind you, not still no contract. And so I was like, okay, sure, And she's like, we're gonna do a panel interview with you, and we'll see, from there, like if we think that you're still a good fit. And I was absolutely terrified because everybody on my panel were the folks that were in like teaching us the tools and the skills that we need to be, you know, top interviewers, and our cover letters and resumes just looking immaculate, And so I was like, how am I going to impress these folks? Like, I was just so nervous. And it went really great. They were impressed with my interview, and they were impressed with those who taught me those skills. And it just was a great experience. And so I ended up getting the apprenticeship role. And when we got to that point, um, it's learning more of the workforce development side of reentry work, and more of how our organization runs as a whole as far as federal funding, our policies, our advocates, our centrals teams. Like, there are close to 700 employees within this organization, and I kind of learned a little bit of what they all do. But the main focus that they had for my trainings was I completed a customer service professional training through the Customer Service Institute of America. And then they also trained me. I did a reentry specialist certificate training through the it's the NRWC. I want to say the National Workforce. Hold on. It's the National Reentry Workforce Collaborative. I have my certificate next to me, so I just had to look at the right name. I had it memorized, but I get nervous and forget. So I did that training, and that training was one of the best trainings that I've ever been a part of during this whole experience, because it teaches you the importance of what individuals experience re-entering back into society. It's not just transportation, housing, food security. It's so much more internally that these folks need to work on to really be successful um, when they re-enter back into society. And so it teaches you how to really be an active listener with using the motivational interviewing techniques, um, evocative questions, empathetic reflections, things like that. But it opens you up to be empathetic to their situation while keeping those professional boundaries. And I didn't understand that because with my ADHD, I tend to not always make things about myself, but I was doing that. And so during those trainings, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not really listening to these folks. Like, I really need to like just stop and listen. And so I just look at the world in a different light with just these simple trainings that I've been through. And you get this imposter syndrome feeling when you are put into a position that seems professional, I guess, if you will, because like I said, I was a stay-at-home mom for quite some time, and I didn't know how to be professional. I didn't know how to support somebody truly in wanting to change their lives around. Like, I didn't know what that looked like. And this has given me that opportunity to become authentically me in a professional setting, in a safe space, and get positive feedback or even constructive feedback, if you will, on things that I could work on to improve my professionalism, but it's also helped my personal life as well. I got my, custody of my kids back during this time, and this program and these opportunities that I've received while I've been here have made all that possible. And so it just reflects back, and it's like this big full circle, and it's like the folks where I was on the other end, being told by the courts what to do. Now I'm on the other side of it saying, "Hey, like, this is what we do, and we can help your clients or your folks that you need support with, like, send them our way, and we can help with the employment aspect of it." And so it's this crazy wraparound experience that has given me a sense of purpose outside of being a wife and a mother for the first time ever in my entire life.
Well, congratulations. That's great stuff. I want to go back on a few things so I can congratulate you a little bit more about that. So, the first time that you were going to interview for a position, there were four other people. You almost, gave it up and said, you know what, I think they're more qualified than I, and I'm just going to pull my name out of consideration. And obviously, you decided not to do that, and it worked out for you. I just want to point that out because on the inside, I think that we do struggle with self-esteem. We do struggle with, who's going to hire me? How am I going to get an opportunity? And I think what you just showed, you demonstrated in your life, what you did is said that even though my instinct is to say I'm walking away from this, you stuck with it and look how it turned out. And then sincere congratulations for getting custody of your children back. That's a wonderful thing. Um, I think it's terrific. I have a former cellmate of mine that after 10 years he got custody of his son back after it released, and it took a while, but he did get custody of his son. So I think that's terrific. The other thing that I think, the workforce thing, is a true coincidence. Yesterday I was at a workforce conference specific to reentry down in Florida, and I was asked to speak at the conference on behalf of incarcerated people to talk about how we're looking for those opportunities that we can find employment, that we can contribute to the company and all these other things. And I will tell you that it was amazing to me how many people, workforce professionals, there were probably 300 workforce professionals from around the country that were there, how many of them had a background. um, it's a career path because of lived experience that brings so much value, right? You can relate to the people that you're helping because at one point you were in their shoes. And so it seems to me that maybe people on the inside right now are thinking, well, how can I use this experience to make a career for myself and to help others at the same time? And workforce is absolutely a field that hires people with backgrounds and provides career paths for people to to find meaningful employment at a living wage with the opportunity for benefits and other things. So, I mean, I think that the track you're on, there's a definite path forward with that.
Yes, yes, most definitely. And that's one of the biggest things that I want to emphasize about um, this organization is, if you get the opportunity to join the Center for Employment Opportunities, speak up about what it is that you want to do, because regardless of your background, there's still opportunity for you. It's just getting the right trainings and the right certificates or credentialing that you might need to be successful. But just because you have a background doesn't disqualify you. And that's one of the things, being from northern Minnesota, that I didn't know was even possible. Like, I just, northern Minnesota, it's a small area. It's not as populated as some of the major cities, maybe Minneapolis, St. Paul, but um, as far as like resources with the background, it's very limited. But when I moved here and I found out about this program, you know, I had no idea the types of supportive services that were here. And one of the biggest things that they did for me was supported me on my GED journey as well. And I just want to kind of showcase that a little bit too. And knowing that, with a justice impacted background, having your high school diploma or your GED is so important, because it gives you one more thing to have on your tool belt as far as your credentialing and the things that you are progressing towards a better life with. And I've heard of stories where people had great opportunities and their offers were rescinded because they had no high school diploma or GED to be able to, show for them because, employers look at that and they're like, "Well, they can't even follow through with their high school education," and so I just wanna say it's very important, and so I'm so grateful that the Center for Employment Opportunities backed that for me and pushed me to that because I kept making excuses like, "Oh, I got this to do. Oh, I got that to do." And then, I looked at Tamara one day, I was like, "Let's just get the vouchers. Let's just do it." And we did it, and I did it, and I was terrified because it had been 18 years since I was in high school. And that's just crazy to think like a whole nother, term of schooling, just your general education. And I did a little bit of studying, I did the test, and I passed. And this weight was lifted off my shoulders, and this level of appreciation for myself, just to say that, like, hey, I did this and I finished this. Cause I was kind of squeaked by with my CNA as equivalent to or higher than, but a lot of folks, a lot of employers that, you look up when looking for jobs, they want to verify that education. So if folks don't have it, I recommend getting it, and it's just positive for your whole life outlook, anyway. So I would most definitely encourage that part too.
And I want to point this out too. So if people that are watching or listening to this recognize Tamara's name, it's because she was a guest on the podcast. And for all the secrets to come out, this is how I met Courtney, was an introduction. And I also want to point out she just had her book released. She published a book, and I want to say within the last month or so, the book has been released, and she's done some signings, and it sounds like it's going great. And again, sharing her story and her lived experience and how she's working to help people the way that she's impacted your life in a positive way.
Yes, I just want to say, for my history as far as women role figures in my life, it hasn't always been very positive. I guess I haven't ever really had many influential role models in my life. But Tamara is one of the most influential role models I've ever had. And she has encouraged me to just be unapologetically me and be authentic and know that it's okay to be authentic, even with a justice impacted background. Like, you don't have to fit in to somebody's standard of what they think you should be. Like, just be you, and it's okay to just be you, and the right people will recognize that and appreciate you for that. And so use your background as a tool, as a skill to keep pushing you forward, and don't focus on the things that went wrong, but focus on the things that did go right, and focus on those strengths and build off of that. And she's shown me that. And um the outlook that I have on life is so much more enduring now because she's been there to support me. Even, in my personal life with some of her history and her background, she's just helped me with so many things, like as far as like the education system with my children and getting my GED and understanding the importance of that. Cause I was like, I don't get why it's important. But she showed me and explained to me why it is. And I just feel so accomplished in life because she's been there with me since day one, since November 4th. She's been by my side, root me on, and I'll tell you, it took me a solid 4 weeks before I opened up in the internship, on our development day trainings, which were at that time every 3 hours, Mondays and or I'm sorry, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And, when I opened my mouth, like, she just looked at me and she's like, "You speak?" And then, like, I started engaging a little bit more, and that's how she was like, "You know what? You'll be perfect for this apprenticeship program." And so I am their pilot. I'm a part of their pilot program, and I hope they continue to go through with this program and open it up for more individuals because the hands-on experience you won't get anywhere else. There are some places that have paid apprenticeships, but that on the job training is just so immaculate to gaining new skills and like developing new behaviors. And it's been a great opportunity. And I feel honored to be a part of it.
I mean, I think it works both ways. You obviously are bringing great value to working there and those that you impact and what have you. So, Courtney, I want to thank you for taking the time to visit with us. I think this has been a terrific conversation, and that's what we try to do is bring hope and inspiration on the inside, So people are sitting there right now listening to your story saying, man, if Courtney could do that, that's something I want to try to do. And because you've talked about overcoming the barriers that you had to deal with, right? With not, without having a high school diploma, with the issues you had being justice impacted, and so on and so forth. So I'm grateful for your time, and I think that this is going to be a really popular episode. This is the Path Forward podcast. I'm Augie Gillarducci. I'm the host of this, and we release a new episode every 2 weeks. So just keep looking at your tablets on the inside, and if you're on the outside, we have the video version of this on YouTube, and we have the podcast, the audio version on the traditional podcast networks. And those of you that continue to write letters, we so much appreciate it. We're doing our best to keep up with them. And I want to share, it's been a number of episodes, but it's P.O. Box 3411, Peachtree City, Georgia, 30269. And just address it to the Path Forward Podcast, P.O. Box 3411, Peachtree City, Georgia, 30269. And if you have some things you want to share with Courtney, just make sure to tell us that you want us to forward the letter to Courtney, and we'll absolutely will do that. So Courtney, again, thank you for your time and being a guest today. And this is Augie Gillarducci with the Path Forward Podcast. We'll see you next time.